Cheryl Boss now, who will talk a little bit about Carol Clevin.
We would like to take a moment to remember Carol Clevin, who passed away on March 12, 2015. Carol was a long-time and very active member of the League of Women Voters, and all of us in the League had the pleasure of working with her. Although she had soft-spoken and gentle demeanor, she was a powerhouse of a woman. In her private, public, and political life, she had an impressive resume of accomplishments. Her obituary listed an array of organizations and boards that were privileged to have her as a member. Her true legacy, though, is not what she accomplished, but how she did it. The how was most visible in her political life on both the local and state levels. She never compromised her conscience, her honesty, her ethics, or her integrity. If all politicians in local, state, and federal government followed in her footsteps, especially if they emulated the how, we would all be better served. We shall miss her. Please join me in a moment of silence to remember Carol. Thank you. We are pleased to have Ellen Hardy moderating our debate. Ellen is a founding member of the Westford League of Women Voters and town moderator for Westford.
Thank you, Cheryl. Good evening. Thank you so very much for being here. The format for tonight's moderated candidates night, I'm anticipating our town meeting on Saturday, so I guess I have another hat on at the same time, is to first I will tell you who the uncontested candidates are. Two of them are here tonight, but because there are only two of the 9 here, they've chosen not to take the opportunity to speak to you, but I will identify those and introduce the 2 that are here. And then we will get to the contested races, which are your Board of Selectmen and the school committee in Chelmsford. In that case, you will have an opportunity to write your questions down, pass them to a league member. We have the pleasure of having Emma Newcomb, who is a member of the Chelmsford High School class of 2017, who is handing out cards and collecting the questions. So just espy Emma, and she will get your questions up to the moderator. So when we get to the contested races, I will explain to you how that will work, but be thinking of your questions at the moment. Just to go over the logistics for Election Day itself, which is on Tuesday, April 7th, just 2 days after Easter, and the polls, as always, are open from 7 a.m. to 8. There are some changes in polling places, so I'd like to take a minute, and the League has asked me to do this, to explain to you who will be voting where, and please take note of this before you head to the polls on the 7th. The precincts 2 and 3 will be voting at the Senior Center in North Chelmsford. The Harrington School will not be open for voting this spring. Precincts 1 and 9 will be voting at the large gym in the McCarthy School. The Town Hall will not be open for voting. Precincts 4 and 6 will be voting in the large gym at the McCarthy School as well. Westlands School will not be used for voting in the April 7th election. Precinct 5 will be voting again in the large gym at the McCarthy School, and the Byam School will not be used this year for voting. And finally, Precincts 7 and 8 will not change. They will vote at the McCarthy School gym as they have in previous years. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call the town clerk's office. The phone is 250-5205. But make a note of that before you head for the polls. I will now review who are the candidates for the uncontested races. So you will see these names on the ballot. For the planning board, Colleen Stansfield is running for re-election as an incumbent. There are 3 openings, and there are 3 candidates running for 3-year terms. Very mathematically comfortable. Also running for the first time is Monica Gregoire, and Monica is here this evening. Thank you so very much for coming. Maybe you could stand up so those here will know who you are. Thank you for being here. and Glenn Cole, who is not able to make it here this evening because of a previous commitment. Those are the 3 candidates for Planning Board in Chelmsford. For the Library Trustee, there are 2 candidates running for the 3-year term, and these one is able to be here, Donna Newcomb, if you could stand so people will know who you are. Thank you so much. Unable to be here tonight, but running is Andrew Silenish, whose name will be on the ballot. For Housing Authority, the incumbent is not able to be here tonight, but she is running for re-election. Denise Macarel is on the ballot. And for Board of Health, we have 1 candidate for the 1-year term, and that's Anne Marie Rourke. And finally, for Cemetery Commissioner, on the ballot will be the incumbent Valerie Peterson, who is unable to be here tonight due to a prior commitment. Okay, so that takes us to the contested candidates, which are the Board of Selectmen and the School Committee, and we'll start with the Board of Selectmen. Let me tell you what the format would be. We're not going to do opening statements tonight. There will be a 2-minute closing statement by each of the candidates. We have questions, as I said, from the press, from the league, and from you. And each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to each question that's asked. Audience members are asked to write your questions on the index cards and give them to Emma, as I said. And we do have, from the press here tonight, we both have somebody from the Chelmsford Independent, and that's, I've lost your name, Betsy, but I've got it here. Hold on, I will find you. I apologize. Betsy Levinson, who is here. And from the Lowell Sun, Alana Melanson. As I said, in Westford, it would be Melanson, but it's Melanson. It is Melanson. After all of that, I was cued properly. My error. And they will be asking the questions that they have as well. We will also have an opportunity toward the end of the question period for any candidate to ask one of their opponents a question that they are interested in knowing the answer to. That response can be 90 seconds. And then the person who asked the question may have an opportunity for a very polite final statement on follow-up to the question that they have asked. So with that, I will start with the questions. Oh, let me introduce who the candidates are here. I apologize. At the far end is George Dixon, who is the incumbent, who is running for re-election. Thank you for being here. To his left, Pat Wojcik. Do I say that right? Close?
That's close. It's Wojcik.
I should know that after about 6 years when you've run for office, and I apologize, Pat. Also the incumbent running for re-election for the Board of Selectmen. To Pat's left, Laura Merrill is running for one of the 2 seats. And then also to my immediate right, Louis Marino is also running for one of the 2 seats. So we have 4 candidates. You will get a chance to vote for 2 of them. So the first question that I have for the Board of Selectmen, and I'll start with you, Louis, on this one, and we'll work down, and I'll change who the first person is with each question so no one feels they're always on the hot seat. Is your policy to accept financial support from individuals who do not agree with your political hopes for the future of our town, or not?
I don't accept financial contributions from anybody that won't make them to me, and also that are going to be that I think is going to cause any problems with my candidacy or my campaign, or that might be detrimental to the town.
Thank you. Laura, what's your policy about accepting contributions from people and giving their viewpoints?
Basically, I am an independent thinker, and I do not have any problem accepting support from residents that want to see me elected, because my policy is about staying with the issues. It is trying to lower taxes, and if there are any residents out there that also agree that we should be controlling spending and lowering taxes, I'll accept your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pat, do you have a policy about contributions and who you accept them from and who you would not accept them from, please?
I don't have any formal policy, but I will say that I've been grateful to accept campaign contributions from many residents, and even some non-residents, quite frankly. And I'd be willing to bet that there's not one of them that has agreed with everything that I have done. So I guess I would say that I am willing to accept a contribution from somebody who disagrees with me if they're willing to make the contribution. It would have to be a pretty extreme situation for me not to accept a contribution.
And George Dixon, your thoughts on this question about accepting contributions, please?
Well, I don't have a problem accepting contributions for anybody who wants to help us bring the town forward, make the town more positive. If I feel that there's somebody that wants me to do to carry out just their agenda, I try to be my own person. I don't want anybody to buy me for $500 or $1,000 contribution. It's just crazy. Whether it's been done in the past or not, I don't know, but there's been. I just hope the town goes forward from a lot of things that have happened in the past. So I am a little bit more concerned about where I do get my money from. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, on the next question, and Laura, we'll start with you as I move this down the table, please. Reducing property taxes seem to be a priority for all four of you. This is from one of the voters who gave this to us. Without a significant amount of new revenue from other sources, it would seem clear that meaningful tax relief can only be achieved by cutting back on current services. What is more important to you, maintaining the current level of services or reducing property taxes? And if it's the former, what current services would you consider reducing? Laura.
It's a very difficult question when you look at the budget that we have, when the town manager is saying that we've hit the wall. It means to me that regardless of whether we want to cut services this year or next year or the year after, this town as a whole is going to have to take a really serious look at where our spending is going. My preference would be, of course, to keep level services and try to address any non-essential spending that we can possibly squeeze out of, and also work on reorganization of or consolidation of our resources and regionalization. And but at some point, we are going to have to either roll back our spending or accept that this town is going to be a lot more expensive place to live.
Thank you. Pat, again, the question is, which is more important to you, maintaining the current level of service or cutting property taxes? And if you see that there is a need to reduce the current level of services, what would you consider reducing?
I think we have cut services in the past, and I think the services that we have now are critical to the residents that live in town. Some of the services that we've cut, for example, a leaf pickup, and on the school side, some of the services that now, fees have to be paid for, there's like bus transportation and participating in athletics. So I would not be in favor of cutting any more services. I mean, as far as tax relief, basically, we need to identify additional sources of revenue. We can't be relying on a property tax forever. It seems that we are, we've come up against what we can get with proposition under the provisions of Proposition 2.5. So I've mentioned before that I would advocate to the legislature to come up with some municipal reform that would allow us other options to raise revenue other than the real estate tax. And I think it also should be mentioned that even though we are, we are up against our budget limit right now with the fiscal 16 budget, it is coming down somewhat. We have the debt that we've had. It's recognized that 75% of our debt is going to be paid off within the next 10 years. 60% of our long-term debt is for the sewer projects. When that's paid off, it can't be rolled over to another project, so that's going to give some form of tax relief to the real estate taxpayers.
Thank you. George, maintaining current level of services versus cutting property taxes, and what services would you name to be cut if that was where the town ended up?
Well, that's not where I'd want the town to end up. I definitely am against cutting services. I think it was done back 7 or 8 years ago, and the town paid for it, and it took us a long time to recover. I think the manager has done a great job as far as increasing the stabilization fund. And yeah, we're in some tough times, but for the first time since I've been on the board, he's going into take about $500,000 from the stabilization fund to balance the budget. I've mentioned in various debates, various discussions about the South Chelmsford Firehouse. That's my example of cutting services. I don't think when you cut services, I don't think it's fair to 20% of the town. I mean, everybody pays the same tax rate. South Chelmsford had no fire coverage, other than from not from first responders. From a short distance, anyway. They had to come from other parts of the town, as well as other medical things. We were 4 people behind in the police department. Even the schools have paid the price over the years, and consequently, we were in a little bit of a jam now. So, as Pat said, I would look for additional revenue. I would volley to the state legislators and ask for help, and hopefully we get it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Louis, which more important to you, maintaining the current level of service or cutting property taxes? And if it's cutting services, which ones would you consider?
We can lower our property tax rate and keep and maintain the level of services, and we do it by reducing our capital budget from $3.1 million to $1.5 million to reduce our yearly commitments, prioritizing instead of funding many projects at once, and becoming a gadfly to the Mass Department of Education, the legislators, and the governor's office until they act on fixing the broken Chapter 70 funding system, which cheats Chelmsford of its proper share of education funds. This has caused the town to raise taxes to offset the lack of school funding. Craft a way to bring new residents and small businesses into town while maintaining our small town feel so that we can expand our tax base and bring in more revenue. Attracting small businesses, particularly those related to restaurant industry, the arts, will bring tourists, new residents, particularly younger professionals. These populations will bring in tax dollars and help create jobs. And we can achieve this through such incentives as tax increment financing to attract small businesses to locate to Chelmsford and allow existing small businesses which own property to expand, and draw in related arts businesses such as galleries, businesses and retail stores to attract tourism and new residents. Chelmsford is well suited as an arts community and a national recognized for being an award of the National Music Association Merchants Best Communities for Music Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will now start with Pat on the next question. This is a 2-part question about dog licenses. The first part, I will be interested in whether it actually falls within the purview of the Board of Selectmen or if it's the town clerk, but I'll let you answer that. I'll ask them both, and you can respond to them both in one fell swoop. Maybe we give them an extra 30 seconds, Tom, if we could, since it's really 2 questions in one. The first one is, would you be in favor of prorating dog licenses so that people move into town in the fall, do not then have to pay again in February, where they've only gotten 6 months out of their dog license rather than 1 year? And the second is, there are about $52,000 generated in dog license fees in Chelmsford per year. Would you consider giving some of that money back to the dogs and their owners by helping to support a leash-free dog park? So 2 parts, prorating the dog licenses, and secondly, allocating some of the dog license income for a leash-free dog park. Pat?
As far as prorating the fee, I would definitely be in favor of that. It doesn't seem fair if you move to the town in the middle of the year that you should have to pay. And if you went to license your dog in June, I'm sure you'd have to pay a premium in addition to the regular license fee, since they would consider you late. Although if you moved in, probably you'd be exempt from the penalty. But yeah, I would definitely favor a prorated fee for a license. As far as the leash-free dog park, we will probably have one of those by the summertime. So I'm not sure if any funds for that come from the dog licenses. Probably not. I'm pretty sure that that's a self-sufficient group that's building that, well, raising the funds to construct that park. But I wouldn't, I don't know, that's a tough one, because the people that are going to use that park are going to use it basically free of charge. So with 52,000, I don't know, I mean, that those funds, my understanding is that you can only charge enough fees in order to cover the expenses of what you're providing. So there's probably not a lot of discretionary funds in that 52,000. So if I had to say yes or no, I would say no.
Thank you. George, the question is, would you support prorating the dog license fees? And the second one is, would you support the $52,000 in income for a leash-free dog park?
Well, I don't see where there's a need. I think what is a dog fee? $25? $50? I don't know, $50. Whatever it is, I don't see a need. People coming to town, they know they have to license their dog. I think prorating would cause a lot more. It probably require additional staff if we had a lot of people coming in. I'm not sure, but I don't see where we have to prorate it. As far as the dog park is concerned and contributing from the town, I think they just received like a $250,000 grant. And we donated the land for them, and I think the town has given them plenty, and I think they've done a great job with private fundraising. And I hope they have a great time over there. It's over at the old DPW.
As Pat said, it's not fair to somebody just moving into town for part of the year having to license their dog and pay a full year's worth of fees if they're not going to be here to get that benefit. And I would also definitely look at how much we take in about of the 52,000 and maybe give a little bit of that, maybe say 2 or 3% to the leash-free dog park, which I'm in 100% support of. And also if we're going to allow out-of-towners to use it, maybe have them be charged a little bit to use that benefit that we have as the town of Chelmsford.
Thank you. And finally, Laura, would you tell us your sentiments about the two dog questions and the law fees?
Based on the fact that the standard fee is $15, I don't think that I would recommend prorating it for a few months. Part of the licensing fee is the cost of the tag, and we have to acquire all that. And I'm not sure how much money of the $52,000 is required to run the kennel so I do not believe that this time I have enough information to recommend putting some of that money towards the free dog park. I know that the dog park has done a wonderful job raising funds. I know I have the form on my kitchen table to submit my brick. The bricks last day to submit bricks for the dog park is April 1st, so if you haven't done that yet, all that money is going to go towards getting that park up and running this year, and I suspect that the park will have to run additional fundraisers over time to maintain the equipment as time goes on.
Thank you. Okay, George, for the next question, we'll start with you, if we could, please. This is a question that was presented to us by the Chelmsford Independent. As a member of the Board of Selectmen, what could you do to get more people involved in their community through volunteering, serving on town boards, etc.?
Well, that is one of my major goals and a vision of mine for the town of Chelmsford. I would like to get a lot more people involved, preferably the young stakeholders, the first-time home buyers, the young people with children in school, belong to the youth organizations, people that have a lot to gain by making this a better town. I mean, we have a lot of great volunteers. This town has always been fantastic with volunteers. And I would, as I've expressed many times, my goal would be to get a lot of the younger generation involved, working on various committees, running for offices. And I think we've seen it with some of our boards, and I'm very comfortable with them, and I'd like to see the people who have a lot at stake be involved in decision-making.
Thank you. Louis, if you're elected to the Board of Selectmen, what role would you play in getting people in Chelmsford more involved?
I want to get more people involved in government with new ideas, not more of the same people with the same old stale rhetoric. I don't want to dictate answers to our problems. I want these people to be able to find the answers to solve our problems. and come up with wider solutions and get our volunteerism, more of our seniors too. I put out there that we increased the senior tax rebate program where they give a certain number of volunteer hours. I think it's 500 now. We could bump that up to 750 as a second tier. They do more hours, they get more off their property tax bill.
Laura, do you have ideas as a selectman how you could be getting people involved in town government?
Yes, I certainly feel that the more people involved in the process, that it definitely enhances the process and improves the transparency. When I first came to town, I didn't really understand very much about how the political process worked in Chelmsford, and I see that often it takes a polarizing issue to get people involved, and rather than to introduce more drama to the Chelmsford political system, I would try to work with the residents through broadcast presentations at the library and the high school, and also through social media. One of the things I would do would be to try to expand the Chelmsford website. I find this a absolutely phenomenal resource, but I would like to see a little bit easier to find the meeting times, the minutes, and a lot of the more extensive documentation is not complete. Things like the master plan, the town bylaws, zoning maps. It would be great if we could get this stuff online. And the last thing that I would do would be to continue to fund Chelmsford Telemedia. This is a fantastic resource, and often it's difficult for everybody to get to the meetings, but there is a large audience at home that is following up from behind the scenes. Thank you.
Pat, do you have ideas about how to get more involvement for more residents in Chelmsford?
Well, there's several things we could do. One thing is this coming Saturday, March 28th, there's going to be a volunteer fair over at the senior center, and there's going to be over 30 organizations there representing the town, nonprofits, and even some for-profit organizations that are looking for volunteers. So anybody, any age, can go and check out all the different opportunities that there are there, and I'm sure that you could find something to interest you. And I think that's part of the issue, that people don't realize that there are these committees that they can join, that they can help out, and they cover the spectrum of, from the dog park that we just talked about, to the Table of Plenty that serves people every week, to the Military Community Covenant that I'm a member of, that helps the veterans and families of deployed soldiers in town. And there is the Civic Committee, which was formed about 2 years ago, and their mission is exactly that, to recruit more volunteers to fill the committees that we have in town. And we do have many committees. If you look at the town website, I mean, that list just goes on and on and on. So I'm impressed that we're able to keep them as occupied as few vacancies as we actually do have. So, I mean, I would encourage everybody, every time I talk to people, if they mention something that they're interested in, if I know of a committee that maybe would fit that, I suggest that they go and fill out an application for it.
Thank you. Just a reminder to the people who are here that you do have an opportunity to get your questions over to Emma. I have one more question that was presented to us by the Independent, and then we will go to the opportunity for the candidates to question each other. So, Louis, we'll start with you on this one. What do you see as the greatest challenge to the town of Chelmsford right now?
I think the greatest challenge to us right now is figuring out how to lower our property taxes and maintain the level of services we have. And I've given you an outlook on what I propose to do if I'm elected. And I think we can lower that. We can give some of the free cash back to our taxpayers. It's rightfully their money. We should give a little bit from our free cash back to them. And I think we that, and then also our public safety. I think that's number 2 main issue, and those are the 2 big issues I find that are in town right now.
Thank you. Laura, what do you see as the single greatest issue facing the town of Chelmsford right now?
I think the single greatest issue right now is our town spending and how that relates to the income, the revenue that we're seeing. Everywhere that I've gone. As I talk to more residents, the one thing that they all have to have in common is that they are concerned with the level of property taxes, and they do not feel that they are going to be able to live in town in the next 5, 10, 15 years. So I think that we need to get control of our spending, try to make sure that as we retire new debt, we do not continue to add to the debt with additional capital projects, and to really learn how to evaluate what we have to spend money on and what we can either put off or maybe find other ways to solve these needs.
Pat, would you identify what you see as the greatest challenge to the town?
I think the greatest challenge is the one that we face every year. It comes around every year, and that is the budget. And that's allocating the funds that we have in a fair way to all the departments in the community, including the schools. Everybody has to sometimes tighten their belt, and that's what we've been doing now for several years. We need to use the funds that we have in the best way possible. There's not a lot of discretionary funding really in the budget, even with the level services budget that the town manager has presented for next fiscal year. Our taxes are still going to go up because salaries go up, benefits go up, health insurance goes up. There's not a lot that we can. There's not a lot that we have anywhere that we can cut. As far as the capital plan that we have, I think we need to keep funding that because we want to maintain our infrastructure. We don't want to have a major capital project, a $15 or $20 million capital project 5 or 10 years from now. So I think we do need to keep on that level playing field and make sure that we meet all those needs that come before us every year.
And last word on this, George, could you please tell us what your sentiments are about the most significant issue before Chelmsford?
Well, there's no doubt that taxes are a problem. And I was one of the 3 selectmen who, of the last people who reduced taxes. I fought against the finance committee and the town manager with 2 other selectmen at the town meeting, and we won. However, I don't really think that that's our I think it's a great challenge, but I think our greatest challenge is to unite this town. I think this town is divided more than we think it is. It has been for a while. I think it started with an adversarial situation regarding a real estate transaction that just ended in a court decision this week. I believe the social media, his people on social media have absolutely, they can say whatever they want to say, and a lot of people write things to the newspaper and they criticize people without putting up their name. I think the right thing to do is for all people to work together and make this the town it once was. This was a very, very strong town. Everybody was very happy in this town, and I think it can happen again. But we have to drop all the small talk and the cheap talk and work as one unit.
Thank you. Okay, I've received another question from the voters who are here tonight, and we'll start with you, Laura, if we could, please. Would you support a gradual scale for taxes for new businesses to encourage companies that might come to Chelmsford? If so, do you have a time frame until they pay the full rate? So if you could address that.
No, actually, I would not support that. The current single tax rate that we have here in Chelmsford, I think is appropriate for the distribution of residents and businesses that we currently have in this town. And if we start implementing new rates for the to bring in businesses, I think that it will A, be very difficult to administer, and B, it would also anger the residents who are very concerned about how we're distributing the burden for taxes.
Thank you. Pat, do you support the concept of a gradual scale of taxes for new businesses to encourage them to come to Chelmsford? And if so, how would you have a time frame until they come to full rate?
Not only do I support it, I have supported it, and town meeting has supported it several times in the recent past, where we've implemented what's called a tax increment financing program with companies that either are moving to town or are in town and making significant capital improvements to the properties where they're located. And typically, it's negotiated with the owners of those properties to where the portions of the real estate tax are waived for a certain period of time, and it is an increment. It can start, say, maybe they'll get a 75% reduction the first year, and then 50%, and then 25%, and then they'll be paying the full amount. And it works very well because it gives them an incentive to come to town, and then within a few years, we're generating much more in tax revenue than we would have with a vacant building.
George, do you support this concept of starting new businesses at a lower tax rate and gradually increasing it, please?
Yes, ma'am. As Pat said, we have what they call a TIF, and she said what it was, a tax incremental financing, which people come in. I think Kronos, our largest employer and largest taxpayer, took advantage of this about 4 to 5 years ago, and they increased a large portion of their real estate down there, and I think they get like a 5% waiver on the first on the new construction. They pay the same taxes that on what they have now on their current buildings, but whatever they add on, and it's partially funded through the town and some through the state, and. I know there's a gentleman in this room who got the largest TIF in the history of the state in Lawrence, and Mr. Lapoli, and it can just show you what it can do for an economy. So I'm very much in favor of it. We have it in place now, so I don't know how anybody can disagree with it, but it's worked, and I think to the better. Thank you.
Louis, what's your thought on this TIF or any other kind of a program the town might implement?
I'd like to see a program like that. I'd propose something like I'd like to see a tiered property tax system for small businesses, new small businesses, where there would be no property tax for the first year for new businesses locating to either the center village or to North Chelmsford, and would progressively increase each year for 5 years until at the current rate. This will allow breathing room for new businesses to get off the ground, grow, and if new businesses do well, grow, they will grow the job market for Chelmsford residents and bring sales and meals tax dollars to Chelmsford, which will also be able to lower our property tax rate in the long run and not have to cut services.
Thank you. I've received another question. It follows up a little bit on what George Dixon was talking about the town having to work together, and we'll start with Pat on this. Pat, how would you as a selectman encourage the members of both the school committee and the board of selectmen, selectmen and women. Sorry, I should have gotten that. Let me start that over again. How would you encourage it to ensure that members of both the school committee and the selectmen and select women work together? Please give specifics and action steps that could be taken.
I think both boards work well, both within the boards themselves and jointly now. I think we have a diverse group of members on both, I mean, in many different ways, in terms of age, in terms of prior, their personal histories. So I think there is diversity in the boards, and I think that's as it should be. I mean, if you're going to have a 5-member board and everybody's going to vote the same way on everything, then there's no need to have 5 members on that board. You could make do with just one. So, and we frequently have meetings with the school committee and the finance committee, the 3 boards together, and where things are hashed out, usually having to do with the budget, but other things are brought up too, sometimes zoning issues and things like that. So I think we do work well together. I think you don't want to have people that are just all saying the same things and heading in the same direction. I think you do want to have differences of opinions, and I think our community is good in that regard. We have plenty of residents who are not afraid to become engaged.
Thank you. George, can you think of specific actions to be taken as a member of the Board of Selectmen that would encourage working well together between the school committee and the Board of Selectmen?
No, I just think that maybe if they would, as Pat indicated, maybe the leadership leadership meetings we used to have would be with the two people from each board, the chairman from the Board of Selectmen, the chairman of the school committee, the chairman of the finance committee, with the superintendent of schools, the manager, town manager, and the town treasurer would meet, and maybe they could meet on a monthly basis. As far as getting along with everybody getting along and having different ideas, I think it's healthy. I think it's a good thing. I mean, the movie Carpus, Carpus Diem there, and Dead Poets Society, when you got to look at things from different angles. And if everybody looked at it from the same angle, we wouldn't have any things out of the box. And people just can't take things as personally sometimes as they do. I mean, if you disagree, it doesn't mean that somebody doesn't like you or whatever it is. It just means that you have you're just looking at it from a different angle. And it's nice to hear the other person, and maybe you find out that you're thinking in the wrong direction, or they may find out that maybe your idea is a little better. So I just encourage communication and the boards working together with leadership. Thank you.
Louis, if you're elected to the Board of Selectmen, are there specific steps that you would recommend to have the working relationship within and between the Board of Selectmen and school committee change?
I don't know if we need to change it. I think what we need to do is, like George said, is have the monthly leadership meetings, and open it up to everybody on each board, and have their discourse and their opinions and ideas, and we come up and reach a mutual agreement on what's best for the town. We all live in town. We all have families in town. We all have been here many years, and we all want to see what's best for the town of Chelmsford.
Thank you. And Laura, the last word on this question about steps that can be taken for the selectmen and the school committee to work well.
I think that we should, while we do have the tri-board meetings, and there's a lot of communication going on already, I think what happened with the school committee was a little bit surprising to everyone, and we need to have more of an ongoing review of where everyone is at throughout the year on their budget. I don't think, and maybe we need to implement that part of the review into what's currently in existence. When we get everybody on the same UNIS system, it's going to be a lot easier to pull together reports and be able to compare how people are actually, each department is performing against their original budgeted goals. And I think understanding where people are throughout the year is going to be very important. We don't want to get to halfway through the year and find out we're missing a lot of money again. So just really staying more alert to where everyone in the town is in terms of their budget review is, I think, is very important going forward.
Thank you. So we're now at the segment of the discussion where each candidate has the opportunity, but not the obligation, to pose a question to one of their opponents. George, we're at you in terms of starting. So if there is a question you would like to ask one of the other candidates for selectmen, please do so. If you don't have one, that's fine, and Andy will move down the line.
Well, I have one question. Laura keeps talking about tax reduction, and we'd all love to see that, there's no doubt. I just would like to ask her if she knows, for example, we had a $900,000 tax reduction in 3 years ago. I'd like to know if she knows how much that would mean to the actual taxpayer.
Laura, would you respond to that about what the $900,000 reduction meant to an average taxpayer?
I believe the way that it's referred to in town meeting is when we are giving the money back to the taxpayer, it's $900,000. When we're deciding not to send it back to taxpayers because it isn't enough, it's about $70 a household, and we don't consider that enough money to send back.
Thank you. Okay, Louis, that takes us to you. Do you have a question for one of the other three candidates, please?
Yes, I do. George, in a recent Board of Selectmen candidate question and answer in the in-town report, you stated you thought it was important for the town manager to present a balanced budget to the town meeting. Can you explain why you voted to send the town manager's unbalanced budget to town meeting?
Last year?
Yes.
Sure, I have no problem with that. I've worked with Paul for 5 years, 6 years now. There were some people that were unhappy about it. People made a big deal out of it. He doesn't have to send a balanced budget by law to in the beginning. It can be unbalanced, which it had been 5-6 years in a row. However, Paul's a pretty easy guy to get along with, and he agreed that the selectmen would put a policy together to make it a balanced budget going in. So I had no problem before. I have no problem now. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, and you may have not a rebuttal, but you can respond.
George, with the state working close to $2 billion in a hole in next year's budget, do you honestly believe we can count on the state to provide all the funding they are promising?
I don't believe the state can promise anything. I don't believe and I hope that this new governor, reinforces the positive thinking we have about our government. I think the last governor did a terrible job, and I think he's left this gentleman in a terrible position. But I believe he's going to do everything he can do to make everything work. And I like the fact that he's doing it with a bipartisan situation.
Thank you. Laura, do you have a question that you'd like to ask one of the other three candidates for selectman, please?
Yes, I have a question for George. Similar to what I've heard in the school committee candidate debates, in your first campaign, you said you had connections on Beacon Hill that would help the town get money. Could you give 3 examples of these connections and how much extra funds we received?
I think that we've gotten a lot of different things from. I'm not going to mention any names, but I have used connections, and I think there's people in this room that have been in Boston with me, and we have got some increases. But again, I'm not going to mention any names. Local people who represent us in this area, we've all worked together with them. There are times when they can't give it to us because it's not in their purview. But I tried hard like everybody else tries hard. And I think I did a good job, and I think everybody else has done a good job.
Pat, do you have a question that you'd like to ask one of the other candidates, please?
Sure, I'll ask a question of Lou. This is a League of Women Voters forum, and one of their slogans is that voting is not a spectator sport. And I totally agree with that. And I wonder if you could give any ideas on how we could improve voter turnout in the town of Chelmsford for a local election. Typically, it's about 20%, give or take 2 or 3%. How do you think we could? What do you think we could do to maybe double or at least increase that by 50%?
No, thank you for the question. It's an interesting question. I've been thinking about that too, running for office. I think that we need to involve more people, get the seniors and the people that don't vote. We need to get them either out to vote somehow, or bring them and show them that there are opportunities for absentee ballots. We also need to look at where we are voting, trying this new condensed polling places for the first time, and see how that works. I would encourage, if it doesn't work, that maybe we expand and add another polling spot and make it 3, 3, and 3 instead of 7 and 2. That would make it more fair across the town. And it's small things like that, advertising them in the papers, making it known, taking advantage of Facebook, all of your social media, Chelmsford Telemedia.
Thank you. So that concludes the selectmen portion. Oh, no, we have closing statements. I apologize. That concludes the questions and the questions from the candidates to each other. Let us start then at the far end. I started with Lou at the beginning. George, if you would give us your 2-minute closing statement, I would be grateful. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for moderating this thing, and also for the League of Women Voters for having us, people attending, and the people out in the TV audience for watching us. These are always nice to have, and everybody gets to know what everybody's opinions are, whatever. But I just tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a lifelong resident of Chelmsford for over 65 years. I've been married 47 years to 2 children, and I have 2 children. I was educated in the Chelmsford school system. My children have been educated in the school system. Very proud of that. I graduated from Lowell Tech with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. 6 years, the last 6 years, I've been a member of the Board of Selectmen, 2 of which I was chairman. Being a selectman is much more than just Monday meetings. There are liaison assignments, there are committee assignments. You work with various people. I've intermingled with almost every board in the town. But what I'm most proud of is that I've been very active in constituent work, and I take great pride in my work in this area. I think I've been very accessible, very transparent, and pretty dependable, and I am extremely proud of some of the things that I've been able to do, particularly for some of the condo associations in the North Chelmsford area, both Scotty Hollow and Williamsburg. And as I stated earlier, my vision for the town would be to get more people involved, particularly younger people. Thank you, and I would respectfully ask on April 7th for one of your 2 votes. Thank you.
Pat, may we have your closing statement, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Ellen, and thank you to the League for sponsoring this forum again. I just want to say a couple of words again about Carol Clevin. Cheryl mentioned some things about her earlier that are so true, and I think Carol epitomized the most effective type of political person you could have in this country. Many people didn't even know if she was a Democrat or a Republican, even though she held a partisan office. She understood the art of compromise, and I think she never met a person that she couldn't discuss something with and come to some kind of agreement. She was definitely somebody that we should all look up to and try to emulate as one of the people who represented Chelmsford so well for so long. To get back to my current campaign, I am running for another term on the Board of Selectmen. I've been honored to have earned the trust of the voters of Chelmsford and been elected for a 3-year term. I work hard every day to maintain that trust. I've lived in Chelmsford pretty much all my life. My family has been here now for over 100 years. I have an interest in what goes on in the town of Chelmsford, and I try to reach out as much as I can to residents. It's whenever there's any kind of issue that they need some help resolving. So I again would ask for your trust and your vote on one of your 2 votes for the Board of Selectmen on April 7th, and be sure to get out and vote. Thank you.
Laura Merrill, the 3rd of the 4 candidates for Board of Selectmen. Your closing statement, please.
Thank you, Ellen, for moderating, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for inviting the candidates here this evening so that we could share our positions with the residents. I moved to Chelmsford here. My name is Laura Merrill, and I moved to Chelmsford 20 years ago because it was a desirable and an affordable community where I could purchase a home and raise my family. Chelmsford was a town that I could live within my means and still enjoy the various amenities that the town had to offer. But in order for this American dream to continue to be a reality for me and many of the residents like me, Chelmsford officials must do a better job of controlling the amount of new debt that we're adding to our budget each year and learn to live within our means. I've spoken to a number of residents over the past few months, and their message is loud and clear. They want to see tax relief and slower growth of tax rates. If Chelmsford continues just taxing to the levy each year, in 15 years, the average single-family taxpayer will be paying nearly $1,000 a month. We are overburdening our seniors and our future generations with our current spending practices. As your selectman, I will support efforts to reduce the town's spending and to consolidate resources so that Chelmsford continues to be an affordable community for its residents. I will work towards fiscal accountability while maintaining level services, slowing development growth while protecting and preserving our town resources, and improving the communication and coordination between the town boards and the town manager. I will approach the job of selectman as a problem solver with an open mind and open ears, ready to listen to the ideas and the concerns of the residents and the business owners of this community. I will work hard to understand all aspects of these issues, vote with integrity, use my ingenuity to find solutions for this town that align with my Yankee spending ideals. I will strive to earn your vote of confidence every day. My name is Laura Merrill, and I respectfully ask for one of your 2 votes for Board of Selectmen on April 7th. Thank you very much, and you can find out more information about me on my website, electlauramerrill.com. Or you can call me. My phone number is 978-251-1021. I'd love to hear from all the residents, and thank you.
Thank you. And the last word, Louis Marino, your 2-minute closing statement, please.
I'm running for Board of Selectmen to make sure that Chelmsford remains a great place to live, raise a family. I want my daughters to be able to afford to live in their hometown if they choose to do so. I will be an advocate for your interest, not my own. I will bring new ideas, new perspectives, positive energy to the Board of Selectmen. I will work for reform and to bring more transparency and accountability to our town government. Your selectmen and elected representatives are not doing you a favor by listening to and addressing your concerns. That is their job. If you have a problem or a concern, my pledge to you that I'm making tonight is to be available to you day or night. I'd be honored to serve as your next selectman and would appreciate your vote on April 7th for Louis Marino. And I want to thank Eileen for moderating this. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having this debate, all the people out here that joined us tonight, and all the people at home, and go out and vote on April 7th.
Thank you. Thank you all for taking the time to run. And thank you. We will now have a changing of the guard. If I could ask the candidates for selectmen to give up the table and the microphones. Thank you. And if I could ask the 2 candidates for the school committee. Both of these candidates are running for the school committee. Neither is an incumbent, so they are, well, I wouldn't say neophytes, but they are not incumbents at this point in time. We will start with questions that I have been handed from voters who are here. I'm sorry? Me or? Yep, okay, great. To the 2 candidates for cable, if you would be sure and speak closely to the microphone so that the voters watching at home get an opportunity to hear what you have to say. For those who are just tuning in, these are candidates for the school committee for the town election that is coming up on Tuesday, April 7th. This program started 1 hour ago, so you will have an opportunity to watch it again before Election Day so that you can also see the candidates for Board of Selectmen who have just spoken to you. Sal, if I might, I will start with the first question for you first and then to Anita. The tentative fiscal year school budget does not include a high school librarian. Can you speak to whether you would have supported this and what you think needs to be done about this position, please?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I'll answer it this way. If anybody saw what happened after Ms. Diggs' position was eliminated, you actually saw high school students for the first time taking the floor at the school committee and describing with great passion of what it meant and the loss of that leadership and the loss of that teacher. So I wouldn't have done that. I would have rethought that. When you bring the kids' emotions into that and you see the pain in their face, that's an easy decision to make, which is not to do it.
Anita, your thoughts about the elimination from the high school librarian from the fiscal year 16 school budget, please?
Not only the librarian, but also the science administrator as well, which are both very concerning to me. I do not support either one of those positions. I think science is extremely important particularly in this state. But on top of that, I would have liked them to revisit all the other contracts. They did look at Kelly Services, which is a substitution, and they cut back $100,000, which was great. But I think they still have to kind of go through the books a little bit and all the vendor contracts and see if they can save more money.
Well, that's a good segue to the next question, and I'll start with you, Anita. Last night, the school committee voted to accept the superintendent's reduction of over $600,000 in their preliminary budget in order to arrive at a $52.4 million budget as proposed by the town manager. A, would you have supported that recommendation? And B, if not, where would you have proposed that the school administration look for reductions?
I would have pushed back, and I actually have spoken with some of the school committee members of where some thoughts I had regarding possible savings. I would have pushed back. One of the things that we had years ago, one of the questions I would probably have asked them, I would like to have seen how much overhead we have versus actually teaching staff. That's a number that hasn't been clear to me, and I would have liked to compare that to maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Another avenue that they could have gone down and thought about is department heads. I know it was briefly touched upon yesterday, but I would have liked some scenarios presented, not just this is it.
Sal, the $600,000 reduction, would you have supported that? And if not, where would you have seen possibilities to come to that figure?
Well, I was at the school committee when the board said that they were going to be united, that they were going to be have a rapport with other boards, that they were going to be transparent, they were going to talk to the other boards, and then they were going to go into town meeting and they were going to fight. Well, within the matter of a week, that didn't take place. They just slashed $600,000 out of it. What did they do? They took out 2 fifth-grade teachers, a kindergarten teacher, which we're trying to start that program, 2 aides, and a music instructor. I don't think that was the right way to do it. Now, if you wanted to take a look at savings, what would we have done? Well, if you look at Kelly Services, and Kelly Services right now is a program that we're doing for substitutes, we can bring that in-house, and I promise you'll save the 30 cents on every dollar that they're taking. Now, also, having said that, since 2008, we've had a no bid with in-town transportation with NRT. That's for special ed. Imagine, from 2008, no bid. We had a 5-year bid with them that elapsed, and they've been just at will taking that contract right now. $500,000 we spent over the past couple of years with no bid. I would guarantee you that if we were to put that on the bid, and more importantly, invite the bidders to the table, let them know that for the past couple of years that NRT has paid $500,000 in front, I guarantee you would do a better job.
Thank you. Sal, this one is for you. This is from a voter who is concerned that school committees are reflecting poorly, school committee meetings are reflecting poorly on the town of Chelmsford, quote, a lot of screaming at the microphone, unquote. As a school committee member, how would you hold the public to the policy of sharing their concerns and comments in a polite and courteous way at school committee meetings?
Chelmsford, as far as I'm concerned, is an amazing town because it comes with amazing people. And I think the one thing that we have more than anyone out there is we have integrity, we have respect. And what's taken place over the past 6 months gives me great concern. We have a superintendent that came on board and did his best, a wonderful father, a wonderful family man. He is from Chelmsford. And what I would ask everybody to do is realize that, think, and respectfully respond to it. Some of the sessions that I've seen in school committee, I've seen some very aggressive behavior. That's not Chelmsford. We care about our own. We can agree to disagree, but in the end, we care about our own. And I think what's very important is sometimes the school committee members have to be responsible also. Just last night, 1 hour and 4 minutes into the conversation on the school committee, they started talking about a tax that they were going to levy against every student in the high school. They were going to charge every single student an activity fee. I think that alone causes a lot of chaos and a lot of confusion. When you make those kinds of statements and you don't clearly articulate it or charge kids for an activity that they're not even performing because they're a student, I think that's a serious issue. So right there, I think it's a little bit of the responsibility of the school committee to temper and be careful of what's said, because sometimes those actions cause reverberations.
Thank you. So Anita, this is, if elected to the school committee, how will you use that position to hold the public to a policy of sharing their concerns at school committee meetings in a way that is polite and the Chelmsford way?
I think the way the school committee meetings are structured is not conducive to, the reason why it may come off that people are not polite is because they're frustrated. And I think we need to change a little bit, the question in answering or the statement is up front. And then you listen through a whole school committee meeting, you have a bunch of questions, and you can't address them. So you have to wait another 2 weeks, and more frustration builds. And I think it's that whole communication cycle, and figure out a way to allow parents to speak, whether it's after or before, but allowing that flow of communication back and forth, I suspect will help alleviate and control the politeness, as you said.
Thank you. This has to do with Chapter 70 monies from the state to the town of Chelmsford. In the last, I'm not sure what that figure is, but anyway, there was a cut of 20% to Chelmsford, a full 20% cut in Chapter 70 money. Bill Ricca's cut was only 15%, Westford's was 11%, and Lowell's was 5%. As a school committee member, what will you do to advocate Chelmsford not taking that full hit of 20%, or find a way to mitigate a 20% cut in the Chapter 70 funds? Anita, can we start with you on that, please?
Sure. We all know that Chapter 70 is not a good formula, right? It needs to be changed. It's 20 years old. And the two things that we have to focus on, and this is what the Commission to Review the Foundation Budget has done. They've already had 5 meetings. The last one was in March, is really to focus on what's really throwing it off. And that's the special education. The teachers, the way they do the calculation for teachers in the classroom, they're not taking into account how the special needs may have to have their own teacher. And then also the cost of, and this is across the board, right? This is not just the school, this is across the state, this is across corporation, is the healthcare cost. Those have risen substantially more than what they had originally budgeted. And so the formula itself doesn't work, and we need to go in with some ideas of how to change. One of the things we should do is get behind this Commission to Review the foundation budget. And another thing is maybe propose that when we look at calculating special needs, taking that out of the formula altogether and isolating it.
Sal, your thoughts on the Chapter 70 amount of reduction that the town of Chelmsford was hit with, please?
Chapter 70 started approximately in 1993. There was a growth factor that was put into it, an actual formula that took place. And what happened was Chelmsford had a lot of growth before this formula was really placed. So what happened? Places like Westford, which is now approximately $16 million, places like Bill Ricca, which is $18 million, or Franklin, which is a comparable district to Chelmsford, gets $27 million. So really what you have to look at is some of the problems in there. Now, if you look at Chapter 70, they allocated $3.75 for special needs. But really in the state of Massachusetts, over 17% of your budget is special needs. So right there, that has to be tweaked and adjusted. But to the point of how to increase it, I'll give you 2 clear examples. Right, it's very difficult to do this, but 2 clear examples. Right now, Chelmsford High School is having a problem with English as a second language. That's an opportunity for us to take advantage and go to the state and increase our budget right there. The second thing that we're doing right now that we can talk about is within that. I lost my train of thought. I apologize. But the second thing we have to do is just concentrate on the Chapter 70. And there's one more thing, and I'll come back to it, but thank you.
Okay, you'll have another opportunity. Sal, this is a voter who is here, who takes exception to a comment you made, and it's a factual one. So I just would like to clarify this for the voters. He says that you stated that the entire school committee had a discussion about activity fees last night, and that in fact it was only the opinion of one member, and he would like you to clarify what actually happened so that the voters know what the school committee actually discussed last night. Can you clarify that? 2 members of the board last night started with Chairman Rigby, also Barbara Scar talked about it, and they talked about increasing
an activity fee for every one of the kids in the high school, which lowering down the athletic fee because everybody would be at a constant price. I don't think it's fair to tax everybody.
I just
in the
needed to know that clarification about what
There
members
were-
of the school committee.
I didn't say all of them. There were 2 members,
Okay.
the chairman and Barbara Scar.
That was the factual correction that we were looking for. Thank you. I now have a question that is from the Chelmsford Independent, from the editor. We'll start with you on this one, please, Anita, if we can. Lately, much of the focus on the school budget problems have been directed at the superintendent, but might there be other factors involved? And moving away from blame, what are the solutions for the budget problems that the school committee has been dealing with, please, in your view?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it starts at the top, but I do think there's been some financial controls that have not been in place. Not, standard financial accounting practices not followed, loose procedures that have allowed it to kind of explode and get ahead of those managing it.
What are the solutions? Is the second part of the question.
So, I'm sorry. So they've already started with the solution. They've terminated the business manager. They brought in a consultant. They're now putting in those controls that even though they had policies and procedures, is really having someone enforce them, because those were there. They're basic standard accounting procedures. And in making sure that you're reporting, that you have a clear budget, budget line, and you're reporting against actuals.
So what do you see as being the factors involved in the budget problems before the school committee, and what specific solutions could be taken to deal with those?
Well, I think one of the biggest reasons is leadership. Sometimes people make mistakes, and that's okay. But I think what happens is when you try to not admit those mistakes, or together try to solve the mistakes, or be transparent, and I think when you try to put those mistakes off, I think that's where the problems start mounting. So what happened? We made a mistake. We hired the wrong business manager. We had a 3 or 4 page summary assessment of the budget every single year. We weren't using munis properly, and that's evident. So some of the things that we should be doing effectively immediately is using munis. We should be informing and bringing people in on a yearly basis to train the individuals in our town. And not just one person. Most people that touch the budget should be trained in munis. Our school committee should be trained in munis. Now, I did remember that other part of the question. If we increase kindergarten, go to full day kindergarten, that actually helps us in Chapter 70. We'll get more money in our town if we increase the kindergarten program and get to full day. And what will that do? That'll also lower the cost of the people that are funding kindergarten right now. So it's actually a rebate. It's actually a tax savings to the people of Chelmsford in order to have kindergarten full day.
Thank you. So we'll start with you on this. This is a second question from the editor of the Chelmsford Independent. Margaret asks, since ed reform, the school committee has had a more limited role than in the past. But apart from official responsibilities, what do you think is the single greatest thing that as a school committee member you can do for the school system and for the community of which the school system is a part? I guess to be in the most, well, I won't editorialize. That's what she wrote, so that's it. Do you want me to read it one more time? Mm-hmm. Since ed reform, the school committee has had a more limited role than in the past. What do you think is the single greatest thing that as a school committee member you can do for the school system and for the community of which that school system is a part? Sal, we'll start with you.
Make no mistake about it, the school committee, their role, they establish policies. That's what they do. And then they work with the superintendent, who's the CEO of our school system, in order to make sure those policies happen. They establish policies. So once they establish a policy, let's follow through with it. Let's fight for it. Let's not give up so easy, whether it's a crunch time for budget. Let's find other ways. Let's build rapport with the boards. It's not up to the superintendent to build that rapport with the finance committee or the selectman or the town manager. It's up to the school committee members to reach out across those lines and say, hey, listen, we have a problem, because in the end, this is about our kids. Our kids might not be the biggest percentage of our population, but I promise you this, they're 100% of our future. And I think whether it's the finance board or the selectman or the town manager, I think everybody wants to step up to the plate to help the kids. So the first thing I would do as a school committee member would be that. Reach across those boards, build those relationships, let's fight for our kids. And let's not say yes or no so quickly. Let's say yes, and I'm going to fight for our kids.
Thank you. Anita, what would you do if you were elected to the school committee to be sure that the school committee and the community work together and that it's effective?
So you have to advocate. That is one of the duties of a school committee member, and you have to advocate for them at the local level and at the state level. And that is really one of the most important things you can do.
Great. This has to do with fees in the Chelmsford School Committee. We'll start with you, Anita. Parents are paying fees for buses, for parking, for athletics, for clubs, and even for student government, and for the theater guild. What will you do to eliminate or reduce some of those student fees?
So this is one of those things for me that I find most problematic. My parents are not wealthy individuals, and had we had fees when I was growing up, I'm not sure I would have ended up where I am today. I was embraced by Chelmsford, and I found, I got involved in activities, met a great group of friends. These friends were going to college. I got all excited about it. And I was one of those kids that was on the edge. I could have gone either way. And to me, I find it, we have to look at where we can save money. We have to go advocate for Chelmsford at the state level. We have to provide solutions and help get formulas that work for us put in place so we can get additional funding.
Thank you. Sal, what's your position on, your position on student fees and whether or not they can be reduced and how you would do that?
243 athletes pay $35,000 a year. That's the fees we take in. And we're looking to go to the parents and raise the fees on those children. And then we're looking at whether it's the band or other programs across our school system and raise fees. Well, I'll tell you what, I know a pretty good idea how to save fees. Let's make sure we're following the budget the right way so we don't have to bring in outside accountants to do audits and spend tens of thousands of dollars on mistake and mismanagement. So there's an easy way. Let's follow proper procedure and allow some of the funds that we're not spending. Sometimes the best way to make money is not spend money. And we seem to be spending an awful lot of money on attorneys, on audits. Why? Why are we doing that? Why aren't we being able to take some of those dollars and send it down to the kids? 243 kids, $35,000 last year. How much more do you want the parents to pay? I've been a football coach in our school system for over 10 years. I've been donating my time, never received a quarter. And I have to tell you the truth. There are kids in our system right now, they can't even afford the fees to play a sport or to play band, to be in the band. I mean, the band's going to play at Fenway Park April 14th. Is anybody rejoicing that? Is anybody talking about that? Let's celebrate some of our successes and get this town involved with the successes as opposed to all the negativity that's taken place. We can do this as a community. We can find a way. Let's stop mismanaging money and let's send it back down to the kids.
Thank you. Sal, would you consider supporting having the teachers pay their own union dues rather than having them pay it as a payroll deduction? Because I understand, this is the voter speaking, I understand that payroll companies don't provide that service without a charge to the taxpayers. Is that something you have a position on?
Eileen, could you please repeat that
I certainly
question?
Would you consider supporting the teachers paying their own union dues rather than having them as a payroll deduction? Because I understand that payroll companies don't provide that service without a charge to the taxpayers.
Okay, so when you do a payroll deduction, you do it under Section 125. It's just a rule of thumb. And that's a pre-tax dollar. So it's actually a benefit to the town, and it's a benefit to the employee to have it pre-tax under Section 125. Now, I mean, that's a tough question to ask, whether you're going to take that away from teachers. I don't think that's a question we can answer right here. I think that's a question that 5 members of the board get together and they have that conversation. And collectively, we agree. On the surface, I know this. As an employer, as an employee, I have to tell you that I have amounts taken out of my paycheck, fair shares, and I would have to understand exactly the amount before I could intelligently answer that question.
Okay, thank you. Anita, do you have an answer to this about the position of whether or not teachers should pay their own dues rather than having them taken out as a payroll deduction, and whether or not this costs an additional cost to the taxpayers to have it done the way it is doing?
Well, typically payroll providers don't charge you on a per transaction basis. They charge you for the whole payroll. So if they're doing a payroll, it's a payroll. So regardless of how many deductions you have, it shouldn't matter, and it shouldn't be costing the town. If it's costing the town, then we need to go reevaluate our payroll provider.
Thank you. So Anita, we'll start with this. Prior to September of 2014, what were you involved in to support the schools and the town? Any volunteer projects or organizations?
So I've been involved in my children's schooling as a room mom, organizing events, like the Halloween parties and, spring, 100 days, stuff like that, as well as, volunteering on their field trips and where I could.
Sal, what's been your involvement with the schools and the town, please?
For over 10 years, I've been contributing on the fields for our kids. I've been mentoring our children. I coach Pop Warner at nighttime. I'm the president of Chelmsford Pop Warner from 6 to 8:30 at night. And from 2:30 in the afternoon to 5:30 in the afternoon, I mentor your young men on the football field. But it's more than that. I'm very active in raising funds for your town. Although the turf field's controversial, today is a wonderful effect of that. Today, your children are on the field, whether it's the band or whether it's a sport. They're on the fields because they're able to play. We're able to have that. Even though there was snow on the ground, we plowed the fields. I've been active in bringing mentoring programs. Last year we did the center school. This year we did McCarthy. We actually brought the Boston Celtics in, and they mentor the kids and they talk to the kids. So I helped contribute to the McCarthy Middle School, named after Angelo Taranto. There was over $100,000 savings at a zero cost to the town. Parker Middle School, wells and irrigation systems, zero cost to the town at over $70,000. Also, at the high school, we put in, and I spearheaded that program, over $60,000 for a fitness center for our kids, our administrators, anybody in the school. The wrestling room we helped contribute. Time after time, our family, time after time, we've been able to contribute to the town. Not because we had to, because we want to.
Thank you. I'm going to now go to the point where you can ask each other questions if you want, and then if we have time before closing statements, I have one more question, but I want to be sure to give you that opportunity if you want to. Since I started with Sal, Anita, I'll give you a chance if you want to. It's not an obligation. If you have a question to ask of Sal, now is the opportunity to do that.
So Sal, since you stated that you were disappointed that after a week, the school department just, they were going to advocate and they just accepted the number from the town manager, they have a $600,000 discrepancy from what the town's giving them and what they currently are proposing. The budget hasn't been approved yet. It doesn't get approved for another month. What do you suggest they do?
Well, last night they voted to approve the budget, and with those deductions last night while we were having a debate. But to that point exactly, sure. When we first found out that we were in a deficit, I spoke to many members of the boards. And one of the persons I spoke to was on the finance committee. And that person was Kathy Duffin. And she said, you know something? If they had called over to us and asked for a few $100,000, I'm sure we would have been able to figure out some. That's what I'm talking about with a rapport. That's what I'm talking about with the school committee reaching across the lines and just asking questions. So we voted to approve $600,000 in cuts without reaching over to any boards and asking them what we should do. So what would I have done? I would have certainly asked a question of what can any of the boards do to help us before, as I said, within 2 weeks, accepting $600,000 in cuts, laying off Linda and Danielle over at the McCarthy Middle School, 2 teachers in the 5th grade that now had their jobs repositioned, or at this point right now, they don't have one. I don't think that's building good morale. I don't think that's fair. So right off the bat, that's what I would have done.
Anita, do you have a response to that you'd like to respond? Otherwise, I'll let
Sure.
Sal ask you a question.
Sure. The budget doesn't get approved until it goes in front of town meeting, and I believe it still has to go in front of the FinCom, and then it gets presented to town meeting. So you do have this time to go in and advocate and get additional funds.
Sure you do. At the end of April, that's when it goes in front of town meeting, or that's when it goes for a full vote. But here's the deal. How do we argue when our own school committee has accepted the $600,000 in cuts? Don't you think that they should be the ones advocating right now? Don't you think that they should be the ones fighting? How does none the member of the board say, stop, time out. You guys already approved to accept the $600,000 in cuts. We don't want you to do that. We want to give you money. Or should it work the other way around, where we fight and say, hey, listen, before we take this $600,000, how much will you give us? So, I mean, last night they already approved it. They suggested it. They are looking for it. They made the cuts. How do we argue from that point? Where's our leg to stand on?
And Sal, if you have a question for Anita, and then we'll go to closing statements.
Sure. Anita, last night you stated that you wanted to give or consider parents contributing to a full-day kindergarten and asking them to pay for full-day kindergarten. You stated two things. We should send out a survey, and we could potentially ask them to pay. And then you questioned about the grant. Well, are you aware that we sent out a survey less than 4 years ago? It was unanimously put down. The people considered it another tax on them. And are you aware that if you do collect money from the parents, that you lose any opportunities to receive a grant from the state of Massachusetts? So how would you make up the $122,000 by charging or taxing our taxpayers for what I feel is their inherent right, which is kindergarten, which 85% of the communities out there have, but Chelmsford doesn't?
Anita.
Sure. So first of all, I think we need to bring in the input of the parents. They're part of this decision. And I think another survey, it's 4 years later, the economy has changed. 4 years ago, we were in a recession. Things are different now. And just as any market or any corporate executive knows, that you're always testing the market. You're always going back for market feedback. You're right. We will lose the grant. It is another tax. I don't believe that kindergarten should be, we should charge parents for it. It should be part of our taxes. But with that being said, we need to ask for their feedback. And, it's going to cost us a lot of money. And unless you're proposing some sort of additional going to the town for additional money to try to cover this, how else are you going to bring this in? I think we need to, figure out a way that we can manage this. And again, I'm asking for some feedback from the parents.
Anita, I've been in this town coaching our children and watching the activities rise for over 10 years. And I have to tell you the truth. I can guarantee the people in this room, if they were to look in the mirror and you were to ask them how they are 4 years later after the recession, I don't know if a lot of people with the rising taxes and gas and all the expenses they have to do, I don't know if they're ready for another increase of taxes. I could almost tell you, having hundreds of people that work for me, that we're not better off than we were financially or ready to pay a tax for kindergarten or early education. That should be the responsibility of our town. It's just another tax.
Thank you. With that, Sal, I will ask you for your closing 2-minute statement, and then Anita, we will give you the last word.
Well, Eileen, first of all, I'd like to thank the Women League of Voters. I would like to respectfully ask, and I want to get this out of the way, for your vote on April 7th. If you have any questions, you can go to votesal.org. I want to speak from the heart for a second, and I want to tell you something. I am passionate about our town. I am passionate about the people in this town. I'm passionate about our kids. I have a track record of giving. Our family has a track record of giving. And not just in dollars, because you can't measure a man or a woman by the number of zeros after the one of what they give. You measure it in time and commitment. You measure it because I stand next to people that have full-time jobs. I stand next to mothers that travel across the country 50% of the year, and they still find time to contribute to boards and opportunities. I give to your children. I will continue to give to your children. I'm passionate about the kids in this community. I want you to hold me accountable. I want you to look me in the eyes and say, Sal, you said you were going to solve these problems or help contribute to these problems. What have you done? My whole life, that's all I've ever done is solve problems and been a leader. And that's all I want to do for our town right now. I want to help lead our town. I'm passionate about our town, but more than anything, I'm passionate about our kids.
Thank you. And Anita Tanini, please.
Well, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for holding this debate. I would also like to thank everyone for coming out tonight and those at home watching. As I said earlier, Chelmsford has a very special meaning to me. When I was in kindergarten, I didn't speak English. I struggled throughout all 12 years because of the English. And I was one of those kids who was on the edge. And Chelmsford embraced me. It's because of how it celebrated its children's achievements. I chose the path to go to college. And I've always said that my professional and personal success is because I was in the Chelmsford school system and the foundation it gave me. I want to give back now. I mean, this is my opportunity to give back. I want to be part of maintaining Chelmsford's high standard of education. I want to rebuild the faith in the schools and administration in the school committee. My name is Anita Tonini. I would appreciate your vote on April 7th. And then I want to say hi to Dante and Andre, and please go home, go to bed.
Well done.
Thank you to all the candidates who've given of their time to run for office. Thank you to the voters, and thank you for being here. Good night.
Sal, one more.
And right now, music by Mozart, a clarinet concerto. Martin Frost is the clarinet soloist. He also leads the German Chamber Philharmonic of Bremen, 99.5 WCRB.